tough for you to drive without having your arm up here like this the whole time, you know?
Well, hello, blessings. Can everyone hear me okay? Hi, welcome, welcome. So good to have you, Joanne and Vicki and Patty. And I'll keep letting people into the room. Just go ahead and start to settle into your comfortable meditation posture. Oh, we're going to be exploring a really important, something really important, deep listening and healthy love. These are the themes of our meditation and Dharma talk this morning. So welcome, Moria. You've been here before and I'm butchering your name again. Remind me how I say your name. Lisa, good to see you. Let's go ahead and before we start with our meditation, and again, we're going to be visiting deep listening and healthy love today on our meditation and Dharma talk. Go ahead and pop into the chat why you're here. What's your intention? Why did you come to today's meditation and Dharma talk? Maybe this topic in particular, hey, Marilyn, was interesting to you. But I'd love to just start with that. What is it that you're most wanting to feel or receive today? And you can just pop that into the chat. Where are you starting? How are you feeling in this moment? And if you can, if you're not driving, I see someone driving, go ahead and pop into the chat. What is it that you're here to feel or receive? What brings you to this gathering around deep listening and healthy love? I'm feeling grateful and capable. I'm most wanting to receive ease and the support of this like-minded community. Great, Marilyn. Fine tuning, deep listening. Yes, good. Thanks, Vicki. Okay. Yeah, it's good if you haven't, just gotten clear about your intention to clarify what that is for you. And, connection to like-minded community is a beautiful intention. Often that's my intention when I come to sits. I'm so glad you're here. This is such a important thing for us to explore if we want to have a healthy relationship. And the first one is with ourselves. So we'll talk about that today, and then we'll talk about others as well. And we'll start with our meditation. So go ahead and let yourself settle into your comfortable posture. If you're driving, obviously, looks like Joanne, you're driving, just listening, to listen deeply and not judge. Good, Patty. Yeah, so I invite you also into noticing the judge, right? So part of unhooking from judgment is not in getting rid of the part of us that judges, but in noticing the ways that we do it. And this is such a great opportunity to do that as we come together. Notice the way that your mind judges you, maybe through comparing. Oftentimes that's how it does it. And also notice the way the thinking mind judges others. So just be aware of that as we practice together today. All right, so you're finding your comfortable seat. I'm noticing my Zoom room still says Carina and Betsy. Betsy is my mom. Speaking of healthy love and deep listening, she came as a Christmas gift. We did a day-long meditation class on equanimity and courage. So she's still on there. I need to change that, but that's who she is, Betsy, my mama. All right. We'll take 3 deep breaths just to really enter into this beautiful body. Deep breath in and hold at the top of your inhale. Hold, spin a little bit more. And exhale, release. So a nice sigh out. And again, deep breath in. Hold, spin a little bit more. And exhale, you can sigh it out. And one more like that, breathing in. Hold, spin a little bit more. And let it go. Just feeling your body from the inside out. When we talk about deep listening and healthy love, the relationship that we begin with is with ourselves. And being in the body is a refuge. Feel your feet. Feel the insides of your feet, starting to connect with your body. And feel your ankles, your shins and your calves, and your knees, and your thighs, and your hips. Not thinking about your body, but feeling it from the inside. It's very different. There's a difference between experiencing yourself and thinking about yourself. See if you can distinguish the difference as we stay a little more present with the visceral sensations of the body. And then we notice the thoughts that happen as we're doing it. We let the thoughts kind of go as we stay more connected to the belly now. So we just soften the lower belly, soften the low back, engage the backbone. So be with your spine and be with your upright spine. Sense the natural and inherent dignity of the spine, like a great mountain. When we're connected to the spine, we sense this dignity of the mountain in us. We'll pause here and just spend a few breaths breathing into the low belly. Sustain your attention here. And then let your awareness rise up into your heart space, feel into your chest, feel as you do this into your emotional terrain. So we feel into the area of the solar plexus, the center of the chest and the throat. We're getting a little more present with the vagal vagus nerve. And with our emotional terrain, maybe you're feeling restless. Maybe you're feeling content. Maybe you're grateful. Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're at ease. Maybe you're feeling critical. Maybe there's something else happening in your emotional world. So we just notice how we're feeling, and we also notice any ways that we might be judging how we're feeling. Many of us, don't like to feel restless, for example. So there may be a judgment about that. I just want to notice. And as we come up into the head center, we just feel into the shoulders and the arms, and the wrists and the hands, the insides of the throat and the inside of the head. Committing with some energy, with some discipline, really, to non-thinking. This is not the time to plan or rehash or remember or judge or compare or rehearse or fantasize or anticipate. These are all the things our thinking minds love to do. You can't stop it from happening. Don't try to do that. But rather than being like so enmeshed with your thoughts, begin to notice more of what's happening up there. Notice the way the mind is always busy with these flavors of thinking that I just mentioned. And devote your attention to your breath rather than all of those flavors of thinking. Allowing the breath to be at the forefront of awareness. The first foundation of mindfulness is the breath. And just noticing the in-breath and the out-breath without trying to curate it. Just letting it be as it is. Part of deep listening to ourselves is this not trying to change or fix what we notice. There's no need to curate your inner experience. There's no need to make yourself feel or think some other way. Just be with what's arising. One of my teachers, he calls this the lava lamp of experience in the body. So you can become intimate with this shifting and changing field of feelings and thoughts and impressions and images. And we can breathe through it all without trying to fix or change it.
Get in your box.
One of the ways that we stay loyal to our suffering is by listening to that narrator in the inside that's always giving us the play-by-play of how we're doing, how others are doing, what are we going to do, what's for breakfast, what's for lunch, what's for dinner, what are we going to wear? You know, it's like, notice that voice and don't devote your attention to it. Just keep coming back to the breath and the sensations in your body. Relax. It's really natural for pleasant experiences to arise or unpleasant experiences to arise. You don't have to guard against any of it. It all belongs, whatever it is that's arising. If you notice you get tight or contracted, just relax that place in the body that's gotten tight or contracted. Come back to the soothing rhythm of your breath. It can be helpful sometimes to remember we don't need to manage everything right now. It's safe to relax. And we can open up to a kindness towards ourselves, a friendliness towards ourselves by asking, oh, what would a more inner friendliness feel like right now? It's not just this noticing of experience. It's not just this cold observation of what's arising. It's this caring about what's arising. And what does it feel like just to care about this easiness in the body, or this pain in your hip, or this worry thought, or this pleasant thought? What is it like just to care about what you're noticing? And keep sinking awareness down, especially if the mind's real busy. The mind's busy and it keeps going off into some story. You can ask, what's the feeling under all of this thinking? What's the emotion? Could be irritability or excitement or fear or something else. And then sense that you can actually care for whatever that emotion is that's at the root of the mental proliferation. If you notice the awareness keeps wanting to go back up into the head center, just keep dropping it back down. Don't give up on yourself. Just keep dropping it back down. Keep sinking awareness. You might tune in again and just notice what's true now. What's true now? Might even be helpful to meet whatever's arising now with, okay, it's like this. It's like this. And I care. It's like this. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's not even right. It's just like this. Remembering those words from Rumi. Out beyond all ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I will meet you there. It's just sensing meeting yourself in this field, not judging what's arising. It may be pleasant or unpleasant. Constantly shifting our experiences. It's like this, and I care. You don't need to focus on your breath, just touch it lightly. Noticing the sounds in the room, the sensations in the body, the images or impressions that we call thoughts coming and going. All of it belongs. You can, if your eyes were closed, just blinking them open, making yourself comfortable as we dive into deep listening and healthy love, starting with the self. So this is for any kind of relationship, not necessarily just romantic relationships. So what I'm going to talk about will absolutely help with that as well. I want to share this with you from John Wellwood, this writing, this little piece of writing. But before I do that, I just want to mention that these meditations and Dharma talks are available by donation. Your donations really make a difference. And if you can't afford to make a donation, that's not a problem. You're still welcome here. And I don't want you to not come because of that. But if you are able to make a donation, please do so. There should be a link that went out on this email. I'm on Zelle and PayPal and Venmo. I'm on all the stuff. So I greatly appreciate that. Yes. Please do stay if you can until 10, which is the close of our time together. Full engagement commitment is important to the group as well. Like your presence really matters. How many of us are here? 10, right? So if your camera's off, that's totally fine, but please do engage with your energy and avoid multitasking. Weirdly enough, we do feel it. I feel it. And it affects the container, it affects the group. So just know that about yourself, like you really matter that much, even without saying anything. And so your energetic engagement with what we're doing here doesn't just affect you, it affects the whole group. So this is what John Wellwood said, and I highly recommend any of his teachings around healthy love, healthy relationships, and relationship as spiritual practice. Relationship as spiritual practice, you know, and it always starts with the relationship we have with ourselves. He said, the less you demand total fulfillment from relationships, the more you can appreciate them for the beautiful tapestries they are, in which absolute and relative, perfect and imperfect, infinite and finite are marvelously interwoven. You can stop fighting the shifting tides of relative love and learn to ride them instead. And you come to appreciate more fully the simple, ordinary heroism involved in opening to another person and forging real intimacy. That's from Perfect Love, Imperfect Relationships, Healing the Wound of the Heart. I like the way that he distinguishes between relative love, right? And then what he's talking about here, which is really deep, true soul love. And so I thought this would be a good opening to our talk on deep listening and healthy love. And I have 3 points to share with you, as I often do. And so, and I always ask at the end, you know, what's your takeaway? So as you engage with this, I just want you to, you know, what really lands for you? What was important for you to hear? And do share that with me at the end. So the first piece I wanted to talk about with deep listening, and let's talk about what healthy love is. When I was a kid, I mean, most of us haven't ever, you know, we haven't learned like what it means to have a healthy relationship, a healthy love relationship with ourselves. Like, what does it mean to have healthy self-love? Or to, you know, to have self-love. And so that's an important piece of this, is to acknowledge that, you know, this isn't a class we were taught in school. And we were taught a lot of things in school, likely, but not this. And it is extremely important to us feeling happy and satisfied and purposeful and to experience meaning in our life. We have to have a relationship first with ourselves and then with others, to become intimate, to not just relate to ourselves as some, you know, I often say that the relationship with ourselves is either one of criticism or indifference if we're not conscious. right? If we're just kind of operating on default, which doesn't lead to happiness, deep happiness and fulfillment. We're all here actually because we've realized that, and we're devoted to conscious living. But what we find is many times throughout the day, we sort of we get amnesia, right? And we start to forget about the relationship that we have with ourselves. And if we just check in that moment when we've forgotten, what we'll notice is it's probably criticism or indifference. And when we notice that, that's the opening to caring. And so we start with a willingness to care, about our experience as it is, without judgment. As Patty mentioned, her intention was to not judge. And I had said, what would be helpful for that is to really notice how you judge. Rather than judging or judgment, we can start to notice how the thinking mind is judging all the time. This is good, this is bad, I'm good, I'm bad, you're good, you're bad. It's doing that all the time, and we don't need to change that, because we're so much more than our thinking minds. And we notice that when we start to notice, when we take a step back, and rather than being enmeshed with our thoughts, right? Like, that's probably the first dysfunctional relationship that we ever have, is the one that we have with our thoughts and our emotions, is we get enmeshed with them. We start to identify with them. And so whenever we're identified with our thinking, or identified with our feelings, we think that we are hijacked by them. We're believing all of our thoughts to be true. We're believing all of these emotions that are often connected to broken down beliefs to be true. Then we don't have any space. Then we're caught in the relative, as John Welwood puts, the relative self. Howard Cohen calls it the imaginary self, and that leads to suffering. And so we want to start to, number one, listen to ourselves. And what do I mean by, so healthy love, I didn't define that. Healthy love is this relationship of caring that we have with ourselves and with others, that is not just interested in this sort of like blanket positivity, you're amazing, I love you, and da, da, da. Like, it's like, it's not that. It's more of like a real honest acknowledgement of what's true. And then, and in that honest acknowledgement with what's true within us, there's also an intention to grow, to expand, to be our best selves. And then we can take that in relationships we have with others. So it's not just it's an unconditional love, but it's an unconditional love that's like infused with this deep desire that others too be happy, that others too be their best, that others too be fulfilled, that others too have deep meaning in their lives. So it's this relationship we have with ourselves and others that is, what's the word? That feeds our best and feeds their best, right? Because we can either tear each other down, or we can tear ourselves down, which is default. Talked about that. Or we can consciously build ourselves and build each other up. And so this starts with ourselves. Really listening to ourselves means being like aware this is mindfulness of what's happening inside of us and outside of us, without being for or against it, and being really honest. If we're caught in irritability, if we're caught in greed, if we're caught in any of the defilements, restlessness, anger, any of these things, we don't like beat ourselves up for that. But we also don't get into defending ourselves either. That's where we get into enmeshment with our own thoughts and feelings. We take a step back and we notice like, ooh, I'm triggered. And this is what can happen often in relationship, right? So so listening to ourselves means being aware of what's happening inside of us and outside of us without being caught in judgment. And this requires a lot of courage to see ourselves clearly, to see our beauty, but also to see our darkness, to see the ways we can be selfish and small, but also to see the ways that we can be, generous and expansive. Real honesty. And this is mindfulness. And so we want to catch when we're triggered by another. Oftentimes, like when we think about healthy love, we think about what gets in the way of healthy love, and we think about conflict, but conflict is essential for healthy relationships. Like there has to be some, like, there are going to be times when we don't agree, or that we have conflict, or we get triggered in a relationship to that other person. Right. So, and so when we're listening to ourselves, we're aware of when that trigger moment happens. Right? Like our partners or our friends or our family, like just take for example, like, I don't know, someone sends a text message to you and it's like you interpret it in a particular way and you get like kind of triggered by it, or an email or a phone call, whatever it is, you see the expression on someone's face, and then we something happens inside. We shut down, we close down, we get irritated, we get scared, we get annoyed, we get triggered. Listening to ourselves, which is number one, means I'm aware that I am in this moment triggered, and that I am now 100% responsible for taking care of that. It is. So I unhook from blame, and I unhook from criticizing the other person. Now, I may need to go back and make some kind of shift or change or express something that didn't work for me in a particular interaction. That's absolutely fine. But we first need to recognize that we are triggered. We're triggered, right? So that's listening to yourself and taking a step back and acknowledging that. And that comes with like good self-awareness and good taking care of, like, self-awareness, mindfulness. The second piece of deep listening and healthy love, the first is listening to yourself, being aware of when we're triggered, and owning that, taking responsibility for that, not making ourselves wrong, but not necessarily making the other person wrong either in that moment. And so the second piece I wanted to talk about was how to listen to emotions and not words. And a lot of this piece is taken from Marshall Rosenberg's work in nonviolent communication. It's also called mindful communication. If you're a client of mine, you're aware of this work, but if you're not, maybe you still are, or maybe not, I highly recommend getting the book, Nonviolent Communication. Watch his YouTube videos. Some of the, such good stuff around how much we get caught in the words, right? Like that's why we'll keep having the same argument over and over and over again, because we're not getting deep around the emotion that's getting triggered. And the meditation, I had us tap into what emotion could be underneath all of this mental proliferation. Okay, and so it's about like tapping into the emotion, because there's always an emotion underneath whatever the upset is for ourselves or for the other person. And so if we start getting better at listening to emotions rather than words that are coming out of someone's mouth or our own mouth, we're a lot better able to like listen to another person or listen to ourselves. Let me give you an example. And then I'm going to talk about the third point, which is needs, our own and others. So I had written an email too, so you might have read that as you hopped. This might have inspired you to join this call. So, my husband and I have been married for almost 20 years. And And, I had noticed that I was feeling triggered around him. Like little things were bothering me that don't normally bother me. And when that's going on, like there's something going on that's deeper than that. Right. So not making him wrong, but owning, okay, I'm triggered, like I'm annoyed, like little things are totally bugging me. Like what's really going on here? And I started really like deeply listening to myself and my own feelings. And what I realized was like, um, I'd noticed that, his energy was kind of low, and that, he wasn't, I felt like I was doing more on the energetic end of keeping things going than he was. And I just felt like there was this imbalance in our relationship, and in the energy that we were bringing to the table. Yeah, right. Because like if we do matter that much, right? If we're not being our best, if we're not connected, if we're not taking good care of ourselves in our relationships, like if we're in a relationship with our friends or family, everyone's impacted by our lack of self-care. Like everyone is. Everyone's impacted by our shitty attitude. Everyone's impacted by our chronic sort of like complaining, right? Whatever our habits are relationally, it's like we got to wake up out of the trance of thinking like people don't notice or that they're not impacted. They actually are totally impacted. They're probably, they don't tell you because they're too afraid to, but but we need to understand that. And then if we're in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, then we have an ecosystem now. So it's like the two of us are coming together to create a we. And if one of us isn't taking care of the we, so what I came to realize was I was like, gosh, he hasn't been really doing his self-care. He's been lagging on exercise, and like, his attitude's crappy, and he's kind of just like gotten into this sort of negative groove. And so I shared that with him, in a loving way, sharing the impact of what he was going through with me, and saying, this isn't working. Like it's not like how can, what can we do? I'm not quite sure what's going on. And really listening to him for me in this area, was like really like listening to my own heart, but also to his, like what was really going on for him. And we talked about it and things like that. And he was like, gosh, I've gotten disconnected from myself. I've lost myself a little bit. And because we're both committed to this, deep listening into our relationship, rather than getting mad at me for bringing this issue up to him, he was like, like this is what's actually going on. And so was an example of me listening to myself in relationship to my husband, being honest with him about what was coming up for me. I was feeling annoyed, I was feeling triggered. And what was really deeply underneath that was that, he was dropping the ball energetically in our relational ecosystem. and then, him, and then him honestly sharing with me what was going on there. And this is just an example of like, and he told me, he's like, wow, I've really lost myself. And he thanked me for bringing this to his awareness. And this was a different way of communicating. I didn't call him names. I didn't blame him. I wasn't like, you're so lazy. You never, take good care of yourself. I'm always doing everything around here. That's words. Those are words that lead to argument, and they just, will keep us cycling around the same argument over and over again. It's just not fruitful. But instead, I tapped into my feelings, noticed what was really there, shared them with him. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm needing. And this comes down to number 3, deep listening and healthy love. Needs. So when we tune into and we listen to our emotions that are really at the root of any conflict, if I'm triggered, I'm feeling annoyed, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling whatever the emotion is there. There is a need under that emotion. And so it's like what I realized I needed was to say and to share what my feelings were and to make a request, like, my request was, I don't care like how it happens, but, can you adjust this part of your life so that, things can be optimal in our relational field so we can be as good as we can possibly be because it's what we're committed to. And so that's the third piece is needs. Ever under any emotion that you're noticing, get underneath the words. It's not about what you think or even about your belief system. It's about your emotions. Every emotion has a need. And so, and then if someone else is upset, my daughter was really upset about something the other day. We were driving home and she just kept bringing this thing up over and over and over again. And I was annoyed. So first thing, I'm listening to myself. Like I noticed I was triggered, took a few deep breaths. And then I was able to get underneath my trigger and start to sense into her, what's she feeling here? Right. And then and then once I can kind of sense into what she's feeling, oh, she's feeling insecure. Oh, she's feeling like insignificant, like she's not mattering very much, like her brother's getting more attention than she is. Okay, now I can start to get into what her needs are. What does she need? And that's where that's the juicy part right there. Once we know the emotion, we can sense into the need. And then rather than trying to argue or prove a point or any of these things with the other person, deep love, like deep listening and deep love is like, how can I meet their need if they're feeling insignificant? Like, how can I help them feel significance here? How can I help them feel heard? How can I help here? How can I help me and how can I help them? Right? So it goes both ways. What are they needing? You can see the emotion. They don't even need to tell you what it is. But two things that can help with this if we're having dialogue with someone. Rather than get into an argument, and you can write this down, and I would if I were you, or really remember this part. Someone's blowing up or you're upset, right? But let's use it on the other. Someone's really having a hard time and you're committed to deep listening. Start to sense what you imagine that person must be feeling and then say it. I imagine you must be feeling angry, or I imagine you must be feeling sad, or I imagine you must be feeling fill in the blank. And notice what happens when it's so powerful when we start to communicate this way and we start to listen in this way. Listen for the emotion, and then underneath that is the need. I imagine you must be needing praise. I imagine you must be needing me and Dad to talk more about how proud we are of you for how great you're doing in school, right? I imagine you must be needing, my husband told me in this conversation, like we've done a lot of deep work together, so we're pretty skilled in this arena around communication. But at the very end of the conversation, he shared with me his need, and he said, what I need is for, what I need is for you to encourage me. And I would really appreciate it if you would invite me on your walks in the morning. And I'm like, well, I get up really early. Like, do you, he's like, yeah, I'm committed. He's put in so many miles since we had this conversation. It's incredible. But it's so cool what can happen when we're committed to deep listening and healthy love. And I could meet that need. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. I'd be happy to do that. Absolutely. 100%. And so these are some dialogue tips. Rather than arguing, rather than trying to prove your point, rather than trying to make yourself right and make the other wrong, rather than trying to make yourself wrong, I imagine you're feeling, like get into their emotion, like start to sense what it is, what's the feeling here. You really got to get out of your own way. It's not about you. I mean, this is love. That's what Thich Nhat Hanh says, listening is love. Jason Gaddis says, you never really listen to a person until they feel understood. And he calls it listening until feeling understood. Like, we don't get to decide as the listener that we're done. The other person gets to decide if they feel understood. And once that person feels understood, then it's over. Then it's like, if we're really committed to conflict resolution, it's like staying with that person. Do I get you? Is that right? Is this, you're feeling this way? Is that right? Oh yeah, and so we're reflecting back, and we're waiting until the other person, you can notice that, you'll see it, like a relaxing, a softening of the face, a deep breath, yes, and they'll let you know, yeah, I feel complete, I feel clear. Okay, and that's listening until, that was a game changer for me. It's not easy. I'm not like at all perfect at practicing that, but if anyone, if there's a conflict with my kids or my husband or a friend or a client or a student, it's like, I'm devoted to listening until the other person feels understood. And that requires me to be really resourced and for me to take good care of myself. And if I can't do it in that moment, I say it. There was like a good 15 minutes of driving in the car with my daughter when I didn't say anything, and I let her know I wasn't saying anything because I was angry and I didn't want to escalate things. And so she understood that. She understood why I was being quiet, because I was calming my nervous system down so that I could like actually engage with her in like fruitful dialogue. So, deep listening. Number one, listening to yourself, noticing when you're triggered, being aware of that. First step. Number two, listen to the emotions, not the words. And number three, listen to the words too, but 99% of it is the emotion. And number three, for someone to really feel understood and for us to feel understood, what are the needs? What are the needs of that? Those emotions are indicating that need to be met. And those were the most important points that I wanted to share with you around deep listening and healthy love. So let's just take a deep breath in together. And just sigh it out. And I want you to just tune in and check in with yourself. And then I want you to engage here with our circle in the group. If you feel, if you are able to, just pop into the chat. What's a takeaway for you from today's meditation and Dharma talk around deep listening and healthy love? Listening is love. Yeah. Give space for self-care. Yeah. Yeah, if you're not caring for yourself, gosh, like how can you care for anyone else, really? Like you just can't. And they can happen simultaneously. Reminders of communication skills that really connect. Yep, that's right. Yeah, that's right, Joanne. Good. Yeah, really connecting rather than trying to be right. You can be happy or you can be right. You choose. Just check that out for yourself in your life. A lot of times we fight to be right. Also be 100% responsible for your triggers. Yes. This is effective communication. Yes. Yeah. Good. Also called mindful communication or nonviolent communication. So check out Marshall Rosenberg, check out his YouTube videos, and also you can get his book. He's not alive anymore, but it's potent, powerful stuff. And remember, it's way less about the words. It's way more about the emotion. So when you're listening to folks, listen for the emotion under the words. Get out of your own head and really get into your heart and listen to where they're communicating from and see if you can connect to them from there. All right, let's go ahead and close. We'll bring a hand to our hearts. Taking a moment to honor yourself and to honor the group, the community that's come together, the Sangha. May we be at ease and may we be at peace. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and sing the blessings of metta, and I'll sing it 3 times, and you can sing with me if you like. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. Thank you for joining me. Yes, Lisa, come to Sangha. But we're a like-minded community. But remember too, Lisa, when you start doing this, you do the work. You do the work. You commit to it. It's really incredible what happens around you. Okay, so that saying, be the change. It's so true. It's so true. And then come to Sangha every Tuesday, 9 a.m. PST, usually every Wednesday, unless there's a holiday or something like that. Last but not least, I want to mention in March, I have a day-long meditation retreat coming up with a colleague. Some of you know him, Casey Howe. He's in the Long Beach area. We're doing a day-long retreat called Contented and Easily Satisfied. It's an online meditation retreat. Yeah, Lisa. I hear ya. Glad you're here. Come back next week. Be well. Namaste. You can take yourself off mute if you like and say goodbye. Glad you joined us, Adriana. Love your hat. I need mine today. I'm so cold. I'm like shivering here. Cute, cute. Bye.
Namaste. Have a good week, everyone.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.